The real reason people leave the villages isn't taxes, insurance, or even the rules. It's mismatch. People move here for a fantasy called freedom. What they actually buy is a system, engineered, detailed, closely governed. That gap is what pushes residents out the door. 5 mismatches: the rules, the schedule, the scale, the climate, the culture. Here's the receipts. Buy a home here, and you are not just buying a house. You are signing a deed restriction, a private legal covenant attached to the title, enforceable like a mortgage, and it travels with the property forever. Here is what it controls: the color you can paint your house, the plants in your yard, where a truck, a trailer, or a boat can sit in your own driveway, the specs on your golf cart, because yes, there are specs. Even your Christmas lights get a calendar, specific windows for when they go up and when they come down. Community development districts write those rules. Special purpose local governments running the way a city council runs, except this one issues rules, levies assessments, and answers to a structure most residents never map out until they've lived under it for years. But the enforcement itself runs through the neighbors, whether they mean to or not. Here's how it actually plays out on a Tuesday afternoon. Someone leaves a garage door open too long or parks a trailer for the weekend, and a complaint gets filed. Nobody has to sign their name to it. The reports go in anonymous, so a resident never really knows if the notice in the mailbox came from a drive-by inspector or the guy 2 doors down who's had a problem with that boat since spring. That uncertainty is the whole mechanism. People start double-checking their own Christmas lights before anyone even complains. Residents who spent 30 years answering to a boss retire here and find out they've traded that boss for a compliance department, and this one never clocks out. The rules aren't the defect. They're what keeps the lawns uniform and the property values protected. The defect is that nobody hands a retiree 30 pages of covenant law at closing and says, "Read this. It governs your golf cart and your Christmas lights for as long as you live here, and somewhere out there, a neighbor is already paying attention to how well you follow it." And the rules are just the first system hiding inside the fantasy. Underneath the covenant sits the schedule, the one nobody warned you about either. Picture the brochure version of a day here. 18 holes in the morning, a dip in the pool before lunch, pickleball with the neighbors in the afternoon, live music in the town square by 7. On paper, that's not an exaggeration. The Villages has more than 50 golf courses, hundreds of pickleball courts, dozens of pools spread across the villages, and town squares that run live entertainment most nights of the week. The sheer inventory of things to do is real, and it's the reason the sales tour works on almost everyone who takes it. Here's what the tour skips. Tee times run through the village's point system, and residents burn points to book the courses everyone actually wants. Run dry before the month resets, and you're stuck on the courses nobody's fighting over. So the alarm goes off anyway. Not for a commute, not for a shift, but for a tee time release at 6 in the morning, because the good slots disappear inside minutes, and everybody in the village knows it. The pickleball courts run the same way, minus the app. Residents show up before sunrise, lawn chair, and travel mug in hand, just to drop a paddle in a plastic rack and hold a spot in a line for a court that won't open for another 2 hours. People who spent 30 years setting an alarm for a job they were relieved to finally leave, now set one for a paddle. Even the Freetown Square shows come with an unwritten rule: show up an hour early or park 3 streets over and walk. So the rhythm of a day looks less like spontaneous leisure and more like a shared system the whole community is quietly competing over. You can't photograph a points balance. You feel it. 6 months in, the morning you catch yourself checking a number on your phone before you've even had coffee, the same way you used to check a work email. That's the irony nobody warned you about on the tour. The entire pitch is that the schedule finally stops. No boss, no shift work, no school pickup line. Instead, the schedule just changes shape and keeps the same grip. Refreshing a booking app at dawn, tracking a points balance, holding a spot in a paddle line before the sun's up, that's a part-time job. It just doesn't pay you, and there's no retiring from it. None of this happens by accident, and none of it happens at a small scale. A waitlist this deep, a points economy this contested, only exists because of how many people draw from the same pool of courts and courses. The calendar problem is a symptom. This place has grown so large, it now runs less like a neighborhood and more like a machine, still under construction. Most people picture the Villages as a town. A big one, sure, but a town, the kind with an edge you could drive to. That picture is wrong. The Villages spans 3 counties, Sumter, Lake, and Marion, and residents who bought into the original Northern Villages 20 years ago are watching their town swallow county lines they'd never even heard of before closing. Talk to somebody who moved north back when the whole community still felt small enough to know your neighbor's name, and you'll hear the same complaint every time. They didn't move here to escape a city. They moved here to escape city problems. Now they're paying into a Sumter County budget that's raised its millage rate more than once in the past decade, specifically to fund roads, utilities, and fire service for a southern expansion they'll never live in and never use. The infrastructure bill lands on people who already paid for their own infrastructure years ago. That's the split nobody explains on the Discovery Tour. Head south instead, to the Villages going up right now, Eastport and Middleton among them, and the complaint flips completely. These are buyers who signed expecting the finished postcard, the golf courses, the town square, the restaurants, everything the brochure promised. What they get instead is a construction zone. Graders running at 7 in the morning. A town square still marked out in survey stakes. Years of waiting on shops and restaurants that exist on the sales map, but not yet in the ground. Because every new phase carries its own community development district bond. Debt that pays for roads and pipes and amenities before a single house closes. Repaid through decades of assessments on the people who move in after the concrete's poured. So you end up with 2 versions of the same community existing at the same time. Up north, longtime residents watch small town charm thin out with every phase that breaks ground. Down south, new residents wait years for an experience they already paid for. Both signed up for the Villages. Neither one is living in the same place. The population numbers explain why that split keeps widening. Past 150,000 residents at this point, and by census measure, this metro area still ranks among the fastest growing in the country. That's not a retirement community anymore. That's a small American city, and it moves like one. The path network built for the golf carts, capped at 25 miles an hour, now runs longer than the surface street grid of many small cities put together. Tunnels ducking under highways, and bridges arching over roads, all of it built so a golf cart never has to merge with a car. None of this shows up on the Discovery Tour because the tour runs through the finished parts. That's the scale problem hiding under the golf cart charm. And scale doesn't just reshape who feels at home and who feels like they're camping in a construction site. It reshapes the physical world underneath it, the heat, the storms, the geography most people never think to research before they sign. Look at a map and find the Villages. Now notice what's missing. No coastline, no bay, No barrier island breeze cutting through the afternoon heat. Ask a resident what August feels like out there, and they won't quote you a temperature. They'll tell you it sits on you like a blanket that never lifts, because that's close to what's actually happening. Without water nearby to move the air, heat just stays put, and the pavement, the rooftops, and the parking lots, covering every built-out village, soak up sun all day and hand it straight back after dark. Nighttime lows run several degrees hotter than the cattle land 10 miles out. Coastal Florida towns don't carry that weight. A landlocked retirement community built on concrete carries it every single night, whether anybody notices or not. Now put that same resident at the kitchen table with the bills spread out, running the math they ran before they ever signed. Back then, it worked. This was supposed to be the affordable version of Florida retirement. Now the insurance renewal comes in, climbing by double digits because carriers have pulled out of the state over the past few years, and the ones still writing policies keep raising premiums to match the risk they're stuck holding. The Villages doesn't get a discount for being inland. Sitting right next to that renewal is the Community Development District Bond Assessment, the line that pays down roads, pipes, and recreation centers, running decades out in some districts, sitting separate from the property tax bill entirely. Property tax, bond assessment, amenity fee, insurance premium. 4 numbers, 4 separate timelines, and every year at least one of them moves the wrong way. Then there's the number nobody put in the spreadsheet at all, healthcare. There's a hospital on site, fine for routine care. But a population past 150,000 has outpaced what one regional hospital system can specialize in. A cardiac procedure, a cancer treatment, a complex surgery, and the answer is a referral out, an hour or more to Gainesville or Jacksonville, for care a city this size would normally support on its own. That's the medical desert paradox. The most populated retirement community in the country, and specialized care still means a drive. So the math that got done at the kitchen table before closing quietly stops holding up. Insurance renewal, bond assessment, amenity fee adjustment, the number creeps every single year, and residents who budgeted for a fixed income find themselves running that math again, wondering if the trade-off still works the way it did the year they signed. And here's the thing. Plenty of residents run that math, accept the heat, absorb the cost, make peace with the drive to Jacksonville for a specialist, and stay anyway. For them, the final mismatch isn't in the weather or the wallet at all. It's social. Every new resident shows up with a resume nobody asked to see. 40 years running a department, coaching a team, sitting on a board, and none of it transfers. Here you start at zero, one more face in a town square holding tens of thousands of strangers who all just went through the same reset. Clubs get sold as the fix, instant community, proof nobody has to be lonely here. There are thousands of them. Quilting circles, softball leagues, motorcycle groups, drama clubs, hobby groups built around a single board game. What the sales tour skips is that every one of those clubs runs its own small hierarchy, and hierarchies take time to climb. Regulars hold the seats that matter. Newcomers sit in back for a season, sometimes 2, before anyone bothers to learn their name. The retired executive and the retired line cook show up to the same meeting as equals, and equal turns out to mean invisible, which isn't the retirement most people pictured. The social scene runs hot for the same reason. This many people packed into this much free time produces exactly the energy you'd expect. The dating and singles scene gets talked about nationally, sometimes as a punchline, because density plus time plus proximity always finds an outlet. Politics moves just as fast. Gossip doesn't need social media out here. It needs a pickleball court and 20 minutes, and by dinner the whole village has heard some version of it. Then there's who gets in the room at all. The 55 plus rule is federal housing law, not a marketing detail. At least one resident per household has to clear the age minimum. That filters out multi-generational families, filters out most full-time workers, filters out the entire range of ages that usually makes a neighborhood feel like one. What's left is a town square where everyone standing in it is roughly the age of your own parents. And that sameness isn't an accident. It's the design working exactly as intended. For some residents, that much sameness is too much concentration, and it produces its own kind of exit. The industry has a name for it: villages refugees. These are people who sell the house and move to something built the same way, but built smaller. Del Webb, Latitude Margaritaville, other 55 plus communities running the same model at a fraction of the scale. They aren't leaving Florida. They aren't leaving the 55 plus concept. They're leaving the volume, the tens of thousands of strangers in the square, the thousands of clubs with their thousands of tiny hierarchies, the sheer density that turned everybody knows everybody into nobody really knowing anybody at all. And that's the pattern running through all 5 of these: the rules, the calendar, the scale, the climate, the culture. None of it is a defect in the place itself. It's a mismatch between what got promised on a golf cart tour and what actually gets lived day to day for years. The villages didn't get worse. It built exactly what it set out to build, and it built it well. What changed is how many people signed on without realizing they were buying into a system this specific, engineered for a particular kind of retiree, not a universal fit for everyone with a pension and a plane ticket to Orlando. Florida is never as simple as it looks from the outside. If you want the real stories behind the places everyone talks about, subscribe to Florida Empire. There is a lot more of this state left to explain.